So we'll start the meeting. I'm Chair Fred Neal, City Councilor, and on the committee with me is Councilor John Kenny. And of course, the rest of you can see yourselves on the screen. Suzanne, what we'll do is we'll start with you making a presentation, and then we'll have staff make a presentation, and then we'll have questions and answers and go on in that respect. So Suzanne, if you want to start and make your presentation.
Okay, thank you. I'll just introduce UNASA. Representatives from the organization aren't on the line with me, but just to let you know, they are UNASA Niagara Native Homes is an experienced nonprofit housing provider for low income and moderate income Indigenous households. They've been an organization established in the area since 1988, and they have 32 homes between, the majority of them are in St. Catharines, but they have a couple of properties in Thorold. So they are in the process of developing 60 Ormond Street, which is now, the previous house has been demolished. So they are planning to build a duplex with 2 affordable 1-bedroom house apartments. And it's gone through the planning process and is close to permit. This is a property that has received capital funding from a number of funding sources, including the region. And so we're really excited that Thorold will have a couple of more affordable units for smaller households. And so as what came to light, and I'm really referring to Emilio, as he is the primary consultant on this, the architect for this duplex. And there is in his email that went out a city-owned lateral essentially in the wrong location. And I understand this has happened a number of years ago. And it needed to cross over and encroach required by 62 Ormond to align with the existing lateral. And it has created an inherent problem for UNASA in that this would be a cost that they didn't create the problem. So now they, as a private property owner, would need to incur this cost. And as you can appreciate, for affordable housing, this is pretty tight budget. We're not sure if the resident at 62 Ormond will be cooperative, and we really don't want to see any delays. Construction's about to start this month. We don't want to see any delays because of the neighbor. And there's no registered easement that would have permitted this encroachment. And so it's not a blame game here. It's simply that this is an issue that will fall to the responsibility of a nonprofit organization. And so we're just hoping you could review the situation with staff, and we're requesting that UNASA not have to pay to have the sanitary lateral moved.
Very good, Suzanne. I don't see Emilio here yet. Maybe you want to go ahead, Jeff or Sean, and make your presentation. And then when Emilio arrives, then we can have him speak to. So who's going to go first, Jeff or Sean?
I guess that'll be me then. As part of the demolition of the site, we did review the laterals, and we found that there was a shared lateral between the 2 services, which there are 2 properties which didn't go anywhere. So as part of our process, we have repaired that lateral and have it working. We took it out to the regional trunk main in Battle Beaver Dams Park at a significant cost. The issue right now is they want us to go that step further and start doing work on private property. And we don't believe that's the right thing for the city to be doing, is to acting on private property. The difficulty with 62 is going to be our difficulty too, if that's what the decision is here for us to do that work. We would still have to get their cooperation anyway. So our thoughts are that it's probably cheaper and more effective to do it with their contractor as they move forward.
Go ahead, Jeff.
If I can jump in here, first of all, we have been working very closely with Emilio and the group in order to try and achieve what they're trying to get built there. And so I think the timeline was back around the end of February or March when we determined that the sewer system that is in the municipal right-of-way wasn't going to be sufficient to handle an additional house going in at that location on 60. At that time, municipal works staff made arrangements to have a new sewer lateral that would service both 60 and 62, reestablished underneath Ormond Road and connecting into the regional sewer in Battle of Beaver Dams Park. And if you drive by there today, you'll see a big mound of dirt that we still have to go back and reinstate. This work was done the last 2 weeks of March, just as we entered into this whole COVID pandemic work restriction situation, in an effort to make sure that the group could get a building permit in a timely fashion. So far, the city has spent somewhere in the neighborhood of $15,000 to accommodate their request. And we have some additional restoration work to do. So that's just a little bit of background. I think that's a cost-effective way to achieve what needs to be done in that area. Now, the additional work that the city is being asked to do involves relocation of a private lateral. I know that Suzanne mentioned it was a city-owned lateral, but in fact, it's a private lateral that encroaches onto the property onto 60, which is where they want to build the new duplex. Our bylaw 22, 2011, is what gives us instructions about where we do the work. And so it says very specifically under section 3.8.1 that any work that needs to be done on private property is the responsibility of the property owner. So as much as we'd like to help the group and achieve a proper connection and straighten out the situation on 62, we don't feel that we have authority under this bylaw. If the request is simply to help them offset the costs associated with that, then their request would be for a grant. And we haven't really got any accurate cost information as to what that would cost, nor have we approached the owners at 62 to see what they would, under what terms would be able to go onto their property. So, I think at this stage, we can argue about the relative merits of bylaw 22-2011. But I think it's pretty clear if you read it that says that city is not responsible for the work on private property. In hindsight, perhaps the owners or prospective owners could have done, as part of their due diligence, maybe some more investigations. But I think our staff has done a pretty good job to responding to their requests and come up with a cost-effective solution. And that's really all I have to add there. We're looking for council's direction because obviously we're anxious to see them move ahead with construction there, recognizing they're a nonprofit organization.
Thank you, Jeff. Maybe I'll open it up for questions. And I know Councillor Kenny had some comments regarding it. So maybe it'll open up to you, John. And
Yeah, I've got 3 or 4 questions I'd like to get answered first. Jeff, you mentioned about the cost. When would you said you're not sure of the total cost to the city itself with us doing the work? When would you know that number?
We haven't really worked up the expense. We've been charging the materials and labor to our operating budget account, so we haven't really broken it out. But my quick discussion with our manager of operations, he gave me the number of somewhere between $15,000 and $18,000. But as I say, we still have some restoration work to do there.
No, I mean, going forward, if the city did the work that the group was asking, how much would that cost?
Yeah, so there could be a couple of different solutions there, John, that would result in additional cost. I think if we're looking at extending the lateral into private property, we might be looking at somewhere between, I don't know, maybe $5,000 and $7,000. The material and equipment and manpower, but we'd also have to make sure that it's municipal infrastructure on private property, that there is a legal obligation or a legal right to access that sewer in the event that we have to maintain it at some point in the future. So there'll be some legal costs associated with establishing an easement over that section of sewer. All in, I think we're looking close to about $10,000. But I would, just use that as a ballpark figure at the moment, not knowing things like the depth of the lateral, a condition of the pipe at 62, and what the legal costs might be to establish the easement.
Okay. Now I've got a couple of questions for Suzanne. The funding that you received from the provincial and federal governments for this. Obviously, you're on a tight line, but is there any money there for this at all?
So we do set aside a contingency, but the contingency, that would be more for the building itself. So it would certainly cut into to what we have. You're absolutely right. These budgets are always really tight. Any help is greatly appreciated.
No, yes, I fully understand. I'm just looking, down the road maybe for a compromise, but whatever. And how much would these units be rented for when completed? So
they're rented at 80% of average market rent, but then the
$600 or $650 or something.
$657, and then the region will provide a rent subsidy for the tenants that need it for a deeper level of subsidy.
Okay, that's about all the questions I have. I can't tell you, I'll save my comments till later, but go ahead, Fred.
Maybe a question for me to Jeff. Started off. If they were to do the total work and put in the pipes from their contractor and then charge us whatever it costs to put that in, might that be a little less expensive?
Yes, I would imagine they could, as they wouldn't have to. If we used our own staff, we may not be able to get there for another month because our staff is pretty much committed to other priorities. If we had a contractor come in and the city followed its procurement process, again, we would be about another month away. So time is one of the considerations that Suzanne had mentioned, because she'd like to see the building permit issued shortly, or building construction start shortly. As far as costs, it may be more cost effective to have the private sector do this work because they can work on different schedules than what we have in-house here. So that might be one of the options, but we would need to get the access and easement issues straightened out that would allow the contractor to go onto the neighbor's private property. So they would likely need some help with that.
We would have to help them with getting the easement, even though they're the ones that are doing the job.
I think so, because we're after regardless of who pays, the property owner at 62 would require some kind of a guarantee that their driveway is not going to be damaged, that there's not going to be any settlement, that the quality of workmanship is done in a professional way. It may involve additional lawyers. I don't know if there's going to be a formal agreement.
Maybe a question to Suzanne. Have you approached the next door neighbor too?
We have approached the neighbor on another matter, and so yeah, certainly there has been discussions, not about this issue. So yeah, we would definitely want to sort of have the city's assistance with that, but can work through Vanessa's lawyer, whatever is needed.
And maybe a second question is, whoever's doing the construction from your end, would they be amenable to doing the pipes and saving some money from both the city's aspect and your aspect?
Yeah, I think so. It's Rinaldi Homes, and we're having a project team meeting tomorrow. They are aware of the issue, so certainly we would chat with them about the importance of doing the cost-effective approach here.
Because I think, I know Councillor Kenny is on Thorold Nonprofit Housing, and I was for a long time. And we know what it's like to beg, borrow, and steal funds in order to get jobs done. I don't know what recommendation we will come out of this, but whatever recommendation it is, it still has to go to council for approval, which won't be tomorrow, or it won't be tonight, I should say. It'll be the next one, which is 2 weeks from now. So is that still okay with you as far as whatever decision we make moving forward?
Yes. Yeah, we're just trying to keep things moving ahead as quickly as possible.
Okay, because I think maybe we can compromise here from the city standpoint, but we would have to have the costs involved in regarding putting the pipes in the ground, and I would imagine Jeff will have to make a report regarding whatever recommendation that John and I come up with for council. John, what do you think?
Sure, that's great. I want to work on this. I'd like to get a compromise, help Suzanne and her group for sure. And as you know, I fully support our city staff too. So I like to get a compromise somewhere that we can all agree on, and we can get the support of a couple other, some of the other councilors on this process, because I think as we see this pandemic has showed affordable housing, seniors, we're not treating them very well in this country, and we should start at the city level and help as much as we can.
Maybe a recommendation from us to have Jeff take a look at a couple of different scenarios, one of them being sharing the cost, whatever that might be, whether it's even doing our legal expertise as far as the next door neighbor is concerned, and those types of things. And if the cost becomes $10,000, Jeff, as you mentioned, that the city come back with a grant. You mentioned a grant, whether it's a grant or whether it's utilizing $5,000 out of our reserves or that, and maybe even developing charges might be able to cover part of this. I don't know. but I think, Suzanne, what's your thoughts on doing a compromise? I'll call it you pay half, we pay half.
I think that's certainly, again, it'll depend on the overall cost. If we're looking at 10,000, then that's perhaps realistic for on us to take on half of that. Just if it gets much higher than that, could be problematic.
Yeah, because I know John and I have been discussing this before, and whatever we do to help, but of course it's full council that makes that decision, and not us.
Yeah.
I guess Emilio hasn't arrived, so.
No, but I really appreciate your responsiveness, and we'll, I think to get the estimated cost identified.
Because I'm sure the estimated cost, if we were to do it, and if Rinaldi Homes was to do it, it's probably a little bit different. And with them doing the total project, it might be not a lot less, but it might be less than $10,000 that Jeff has mentioned.
Yeah, makes sense to go that route.
Suzanne, if you're meeting with them tomorrow, can you get back to Fred or myself, and if they're giving you an estimate on a number, with a number?
I will ask them that.
And maybe Jeff too, because Jeff's going to be doing the report. So maybe if Jeff has an idea of how much the cost is going to be, then one of his solutions will be to have the city pay half of it, and maybe the legal costs on meeting with the other owner of 62, those types of things. And maybe Jeff, you could work with Suzanne and Emilio and maybe come up with a good number and what the best way to move forward on this, whether we do it or whether they do it or that. What do you think?
Councillor, I think that's a great idea to come up with an acceptable solution. We just didn't want to run afoul of the bylaw, but I think if that we consider the special circumstances involved here, we'll be able to come up with a solution. Is it possible, Suzanne, that Sean or I could participate in your construction meeting tomorrow? That way we could nail down the exact terms of some type of arrangement that would say, that would allow me to finalize a report and get it on the council agenda for June 16th.
Yes, I can send you out the meeting details. We have a conference call tomorrow afternoon.
That would be great. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Do you have the recommendation?
Any other comments, Sean? Any further comments?
Want me to repeat it?
No, I appreciate what Jeff and Suzanne are going to do tomorrow, and let's get it done.
Fred, can I interject and just confirm what the recommendation is?
Yes.
So what we have, that the Director of Operations be directed to prepare a report to be presented on June 16th to look at sharing costs, and whether it be by the municipality or an outside contractor, the legal ramifications for 62 Ormond Street, and identify potential funding sources.
I think that covers all the bases.
Thank you.
Yes. Thanks, Don.
Thanks, everyone.
Any further comments before we shut down?
I'm good.
Okay, I'll call this meeting adjourned.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Suzanne.
Yeah, take care. Appreciate it.
We'll see the rest of you in a little while.